Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining us today. If you're someone who loves history, diving into ancient texts, and seeing how all these crazy intricate narratives tie together, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a look at a really fascinating source text that maps out ancient prophecies and, amazingly, their exact, precise fulfillment. We're talking about a massive story that spans centuries, literally tracking the architecture of a promise made and a promise kept. All right, let's just dive right in.
So I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine waiting hundreds of years for a single promise to come true. Just let that sink in. I mean, in our modern world, we get impatient if we have to wait 2 days for a package to show up at our door, right? But the timeline we're looking at today asks us to wrap our heads around an immense, almost mind-boggling scale of time between a promise being made and its actual realization. We're talking about generations upon generations of people living, waiting, and passing on, all while holding on to this one single thread of hope. Which brings us to part 1. A promised king is coming. Long before the events of the first century ever unfolded, ancient prophets were out there making some truly incredible claims.
Now, our source text makes a super critical distinction right off the bat, and it's this. The writings of these ancient prophets, they were not just vague guesses. This wasn't someone just saying, things will get better eventually. No way. This was a highly specific commitment written down centuries in advance. And the whole purpose of this specificity was so that when the time finally came, people wouldn't have to guess. They could look back at the text and recognize it instantly and distinctly. It was designed from the ground up to be completely verifiable.
So what exactly were these specific commitments? Let's move to our next section, Clues from the Prophets. You can kind of think of these ancient writers as leaving this incredible trail of historical breadcrumbs for the people to follow.
And our sources brilliantly illustrate how these breadcrumbs came together from completely different places. On one side, you've got the prophet Isaiah, who provides the who, giving us this grand, majestic identity and the actual names of this coming king. On the flip side, you have the prophet Micah, who gives us the where, a highly specific geographical pinpoint for exactly where this king would show up. So you have one prophet detailing the character and another dropping a literal pin on a map. Let's zoom in on Isaiah first. Here is the exact verse from Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. I'm going to read this out loud because the sheer magnitude of this text really needs to be felt. For a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. Wow. This definitely wasn't just a promise of some temporary run-of-the-mill leader. The weight and the grandeur of this description are honestly just staggering. Let's break down that big list of names Isaiah just dropped. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. According to our source text, this wasn't just any regular king they were waiting for. These 4 titles set extraordinary, totally unprecedented expectations. They're describing a leader who possessed ultimate wisdom, absolute divine power, eternal existence, and the ability to bring total, lasting peace. I mean, talk about a massive set of expectations to place on a future arrival, right? But as grand and cosmic as Isaiah was, Micah brings it right back down to the dirt in Micah chapter 5, verse 2. Micah predicts the exact birthplace of this incredible king. And of all places, it's the small, totally unimportant town of Bethlehem. To put it in modern terms, this was the ultimate flyover country of the ancient Middle East. He didn't pick the capital of a massive empire. He didn't pick some booming, wealthy metropolis. He named a tiny, seemingly insignificant village hundreds of years before the birth ever happened. And that level of pinpoint precision is exactly what separates a vague guess from a promised clue. But here is where the story gets really challenging for the people actually living through it. We enter a period called the Long Wait. We have these grand prophetic clues, but then silence. A massive gap of time unfolds. Seeing this mapped out visually really puts that immense weight into perspective. Over on the far left, centuries BC, the prophets make the promise. But then, look at this massive block right in the middle, the intervening centuries. We are talking entire generations of waiting. People were born, they grew old, and they passed away, desperately clinging to the writings of Isaiah and Micah without ever actually seeing the fulfillment. It visually stretches out that heavy feeling of hundreds of years passing. It really helps us empathize with the immense patience required of these ancient people before we finally reach the right side of the timeline in the 1st century. And that brings us to the narrative climax of our source material, the exact moment where centuries of waiting finally culminate in a single, perfectly orchestrated event, the promise fulfilled. So the crucial point
is right here. As the source text states, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, it happened exactly as written. This was not a coincidence. It was the absolute, direct fulfillment of the promises God had been making since long before anyone alive could even remember. The king that the prophets had promised for centuries had finally arrived, and he matched both the majestic, sweeping descriptions of Isaiah and the hyper-specific geographical pinpoint of Micah perfectly. The whole shebang, right there in Bethlehem.
Now, an explainer isn't just about absorbing facts. It's about processing them. I want to invite you to shift from being a passive listener to an active participant here. So let's jump into some questions for reflection to really help us process the deeper meaning behind this massive historical arc.
Think about this first question for a second. Micah predicted the king's birthplace hundreds of years before it happened. Why do you think God gave such a specific detail like the tiny town of Bethlehem? Well, going back to our definition of a promise earlier, if you want someone to definitively recognize a person hundreds of years down the line, you don't give them broad generalizations. You give them something so highly specific that when it finally happens, there is absolutely no mistaking it. It anchors this grand spiritual promise right into verifiable physical reality.
I really love this second question because it asks for a personal connection. Isaiah's list of names is a big list. Which name means the most to you and why? Remember, we had Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, and Prince of Peace. Which of those four really resonates with you today? Maybe in a chaotic, noisy world, the idea of a Prince of Peace stands out. Or maybe in times of confusion, having a Wonderful Counselor is what you find most compelling. It's a huge list, and it's clearly meant to cover the vast, complex needs of the people who were waiting for him.
Now here's a question that hits incredibly close to the universal human experience. Is it hard to wait for something you really want? Oh, absolutely. We saw that massive timeline earlier. How do you think God's people kept hoping? How do you maintain hope over long, difficult periods when you can't even see the finish line? Well, the source suggests that for these people, holding on to the highly specific nature of these written promises is what literally kept the flame of hope alive, passing it from one generation to the very next.
And that brings us to our final, powerful takeaway from today's text. Jesus fulfilled these promises exactly as written. What does that tell you about whether you can trust God's other promises? If this massive, complex, centuries-long promise regarding a king in Bethlehem was kept exactly as written, what does that tell you about trusting everything else made in this text? It's a super provocative question about the very nature of trust and reliability. If a source is perfectly accurate over a gap of hundreds of years, it for sure invites us to look much closer at what else it has to say. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating narrative today. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I will see you on the next explainer.